Let's see, I'm up and running now. Okay, you guys ready? All right, you guys ready? All right, everybody. Today is, where are we? Wednesday, February 8th, 2023, and this is Bible study. And tonight we're kind of diverting from our normal Exodus study, and we're going to finish some stuff up in Genesis that we started on Sunday. All right. And if you need to know where that is, that's chapter 4. We're going to pick it up. This looks like in about verse 24, right in there, somewhere in there. All right, so once you get ready, we'll get started with it. All right. Review from last Sunday then. All right. We picked up Cain's line coming out of the Garden of Eden. All right. We made some pretty good notes, really. You'll notice in Cain's line that each person that is named in Cain's lives also is named with a new occupation. All right. You had the tillers of the ground coming out on Abel, then which will eventually be through Seth's line, which you'll find out in the next chapter. On one lineage under Adam, you don't find Cain listed under Adam's lineage at all. As a matter of fact, in Luke chapter 3, you get Joseph's lineage. Now, it's actually Jesus' lineage, but the first one it says, as was supposed, all right? That's a Greek legal term that means everything by law. And it starts out Jesus and then Joseph as was supposed. And then Joseph's dad and begins the lineage. That as was supposed is just a legal term. And what it means is that Joseph as a man has met every moral obligation, every legal obligation, and every religious obligation to be considered the legal father of Jesus. All right. So I only want to bring that out because I've had people ask me questions about adoption before. Does God actually honor adoption? And I'm like, well, yeah, because Christ himself right there. Right there. Yeah. Now, a lot of people will try to peg this as Jesus' flesh lineage, but it's actually not. There's another one where this is mother, Mary, who's actually the only flesh lineage that the Messiah actually has. All right. So then in that chapter, though, that we're talking about, chapter 3, that's Joseph's, and it says, but if you read it, he goes all the way back, writing this all the way back to Adam, and then even in that lineage, you don't find Cain even so much mentioned, right? All right. That brings us back to Lamech then, okay? Lamech was the character that we were actually looking at. He's the guy who's artifactor of brass, remember? And of iron, so we actually see the place that man breaks into the Iron Age based off of what Lamech's occupation is. Like we said before, brass and tin, about the best you're going to get out of that is bronze. All right? The next big age after that is, of course, the Iron Age. All right? So Lamech's the first guy that cracks into that Iron Age. And I kind of tried to make the point that he probably made a sword because the murder that he carries out is just vicious and without cause. Kills a man and his little baby, a little kid. Even though it kind of reads a little bit different. Now, but what I want you to know out of this is remember what Lamech's kids were doing, all right? Let's find that real quick here, all right? In verse, I guess it's 19 where we'll pick it up. And Lamech took 2 wives, right? And the name of the one was Adah, and the name of the other one was Zillah, right? And Adah bore Jabal. He was the father of such that dwell in tents and such that kick cattle. Okay, right? You go on down to the next brother, Jabal. He's just the one that handles the harp and the organ. All right, and then he had Tubal-Cain, who was the instructor and artifactor in brass and iron. All right, so you have 3 boys of Lamech. Now, it's at this point, these people begin to be known as Kenites. All right, now, I've cautioned last week about don't confuse Kenites with Canaanites. They're not the same people. The children of Canaan, we're going to really talk about them a little bit later in the days of Noah. His dad has some issues, but Canaan's a pretty good guy, it seems like. All right, but I'm talking about Kenites, Kenite or Ite's. All right, whether it's singular or plural. If you use your Strongs, now I got to look it up. I'm supposed to have this all done. Yeah. All right, Kenite. All right, the word Kenite is used in 5 verses. It has 6 matches in 5 verses as a singular form. All right, and if you go ahead and you put an S on it, you'll find that you get 7 more verses with 8 more matches. So These people are talked about by name in the Old Testament. All right, and I tried to bring out in the garden that this is intentional. This line is meant to be there, and it serves its own purpose in the end. And I'm going to tie a little bit more into that by going to Christ time, and we're going to talk about what they were saying there. But any place that you find this word, I'm going to use Genesis 15:9 because that was one of the places the closest to where we are. If you turn on your Strongs, all right, you'll find it 70:17 in the plural. All right. A Kenite, or remember the tribe of Cajim. And that's often where people lose it right there. It doesn't go from Cain, it's Cajim spelled with a K. It also means a Kenite, all right? It's from 70:14, and 70:14 splits into two, but we're not going to take it that far. It's the name of the first child. Who was that? That was Cain, right? He was the first one born. In the Palestine, the Oriental tribe, Cain, or Kenite. So we're talking about the patriarchal lineage of Cain, is what we're talking about when you say Kenite. Now, when you start playing with this word, what you're going to find out, I don't want to break it down because it takes too long, and I don't want to show it all on this video here on thing. But what you'll find out is all the root words for Kenite go all the way back to the occupations of Lamech's boys. One of them means to teach to keep cattle. Another one means to strike a musical note. And another one is artifactor of brass or thin iron. He makes spears and spear points, things like that, and you get those references, right? Nails. Right. Things like that. All right. So it seems to be then with Lamech's boys, they're where they pick up the title, Kenite. And since they're all occupational, well, then you know when you go to the land of the Kenites, you're going there seeking some things, certain things then. You're either making deals for meat, you're looking for musical instruments, a party, something like that. All right, and then, or you need some forge work done. You need a better spear, something, anything, down to a mug or something to drink out of. But nonetheless, those are the occupations, and none of them and all of them are completely detached from agriculture in any way. Of course, because Cain's, of course, is cursed to the ground.
It wouldn't be hard, you just
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. That's right.
bring grain.
And since they're named by name so often in the Old Testament that you know that everybody understood exactly who they were. All right, that's the thing I wanted to get. And that's it in chapter 4. Now, let me look at my notes here real quick because we're not quite done with this. Okay, flip over to Matthew chapter 13, verse 27 is about where we're going to pick it up. What's wrong?
Did you say verse 27?
Yes. What did I say? 13? 27? Yeah. Somewhere in there, maybe. We should be in a parable, yes. All right. Parables. We worked parables before pretty good. All right. Job was the big one that we worked. Several times, so you know what they are. It's a biblical riddle, basically. I hate to use those words, but I really don't know any way better to explain it. It's just a riddle that you need that's biblical. You need some biblical understanding to be able to unriddle it. Is really the best way to put it. A lot of times you'd be dealing with the earth ages in one of these, but these were not. Here we're going to be dealing specific. Well, I'll let you make up your mind. All right. Now here in Matthew, okay, when an interpretation in the Bible is not given, it's up to you then to seek out what it means. But once something's interpreted for you, you're stuck with it. All right? When the Bible says, like in the book of Revelation, when it says stars are angels, you know exactly what it is then when you run into stars again. All right? Now, if it doesn't tell you what a star is, it's up to you to figure out, to use the rest of your biblical knowledge on it. But once that bad bear is tagged, it's yours. All right? And you can't change it. Now, I like this when it comes to the Kenites because this is a parable. Not only is it a parable, but it's one that just confuses the snot out of all the apostles. They don't have any idea what Christ is teaching about. And he's got to explain it. All right? So he breaks it down and explains it in plain English. All right, so here you're going to go from the parable where you get all the symbols to the explanation where you get all those symbols explained. And then we'll just let it fall in the middle and see what happens. All right, Matthew chapter 13, verse 24. All right, this is called the parable of tares. Now, what you need to know about a tare is it's a false fruit. It's a false grain. All right, and it looks exactly like the wheat. Think about Cain and Abel. You have a hard time telling the two apart. They're at least half brothers. Okay, so they look a lot alike. So the tares all look alike, just like the wheat. All right, listen to what it says about them. All right, and this is Christ in the teaching. Another parable put he forth unto them, saying, the kingdom of heaven is likened to a man which soweth good seed in his field. Verse 25, but while the man sleep, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went on his way. All right. 26, but when the blade was sprung up and brought forth fruit, there appeared tares also. So the servant of the household came and said unto him, Sir, didst not thou sow good seed in thy field? From whence then hath it tares? All right. You did this right, didn't you? Why is there tares in your field? And he said unto them, the enemy hath done this. The servant said unto him, wilt thou then that we go and gather them up? But he said, nay, lest while ye gather up the tares, you eat up also the wheat with them. Can't tell them apart. I mean, if you get to looking, you get to asking questions, sometimes you could identify one. All right? But you're going to make a mistake. You're going to pull up the wrong thing. You're going to pull up one tare and you're going to get 3 pieces of wheat with it. All right? And that's kind of what he's getting at. Verse 30, let both go together until the harvest. All right? And in the time of the harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather ye together first the tares, and then bind them in bundles and burn them, but gather the wheat into my barn. All right? Now that's where the parable ends. And he goes on, he teaches another parable, the parable of the mustard seed, the prophecy and parables. It talks a little bit about them. But you get down here in verse 36 is where we're going to pick it up, all right? And listen to what it says there. And this is all concerning the parable of the tares. All right. Jesus then sent the multitude away. Now imagine this guy's been teaching these parables all day. All right, he's been answering questions. He's been healing people that have been sick. And this is the end of the day, and he's getting tired. Then Jesus sent away the multitude and went into the house, and his disciples came unto him, saying, declaring to us the parable of the tares of the field. They are lost. They don't have a clue. All right? And he answered and said unto them, now remind you, this is the Messiah, and he's interpreting the parable that he's just taught the multitude. All right? So there's a lot really in that then. This is not a parable then that's for the general public. This is a parable that the answer is only going to be told to the apostles. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? It's something that's not, the people went away with the parable, they're just as confused most likely. All right, but the disciples are going to get the answer, right? Verse 37, and he said unto them, he that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man, so it's God. If you want to break that all the way down to what that really means, all right? The field is the world. Remember, this is the interpretation. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, all right? But the tares are the children of the wicked one, all right? So who's the children of the wicked one? All right, we've been talking about Kenites. We've been talking about their origin in the Garden of Eden, all right? They look just like the wheat. They're planted with the wheat in the field. And they're told to remain in the field, even though God knows exactly where they are until the end of time, until the harvest. All right. But here, if you want to really know what this is, all right, the seed here, this word in Greek is sperma. Okay? And it's the root for the word sperm in English. It means exactly the same thing. All right. So when people start talking about Kenites and saying, you're just confused about this, well, this is actually what Christ is talking about here. He gives them the answer to the parable, not the parable. So many people read the parable and don't bother to read on the answer to the interpretation of it. All right? Listen to what it says after this. Verse 39, and the enemy that sowed them is the devil. All right? Remember the Garden of Eden? All right? The harvest is the end of the world. The reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. In this age, anyway. Okay, that's Judgment Day he's talking about. And the Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather unto his kingdom all things that offend, them which do iniquity, and shall cast them in the furnace of fire, and there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. At least for that day. Because after that day, their memory is blotted out, and there won't be one tear shed for those that don't make it. Not only that, see, you don't just forget them, you forget that they ever existed.
Didn't exist.
Yeah, basically at that point, right. All right. That's what it means to be blotted out. You won't remember that you don't remember them. No one will. All right, and that's what that actually means. All right. Verse 43 to finish up here. And then shall the righteous shine forth in the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let him hear. All right. So here we're talking about Kenites. Now, and Christ flat pulls them out. Now, if you need I don't like to do just anything with a single witness. Okay, so let's look for a double witness in here in the New Testament. All right, and I want you to go from here over to John. Where were my notes? John chapter 8, we're going to pick it up in about verse 44. So John, who is actually my favorite of all what did I say? John what? Here, I forgot what I said. Let me look at it again. John 8:44, yeah. 8:44, that'll get us real close anyway to where I want to be. Yes, all right. All right, now this is this classic confrontation between, here, let's go all the way up. Let's just find out. I want you to know who he's talking to, just so you understand. And Jesus went out into the morning, went unto the Mount of Olives, and early in the morning he came again into the temple, and all the people that came into him, and he sat down and he taught them. And the scribes and the Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery. Now let's just go ahead and go with this for just a little bit. And when they sat her in the midst, they said unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. All right, now Moses' law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? All right, they're trying to catch Christ in a false accusation. First of all, the law of Moses says if you drag her up there, where's the guy? It didn't say. The law says both of them. They both will appear. And here they only have the woman. All right. And I think that's a lot has to do with why he cuts her a lot of slack. Because if you remember the rest of the story, what's he do? He sits down and he starts writing something in the dirt. And they start coming up, youngest to oldest, and reading whatever it is he writes, and they just leave. They just quit with it all out there. So whatever it was powerful enough to make them say, I've had enough. All right, and then just writes it out. So we don't really know what he wrote. But it's probably saying like sin. What were you doing last Tuesday with Joe, Sue, or whoever? All right, and that's why it started with the youngest. And it went to the oldest. By the time the oldest got up there, I was like, I'm out of here too. All right, so remember, when he gets done, looks around, and she's scared. This poor woman's scared to death. Her life is at stake, and she knows it. All right, and so he just tells her to go and sin no more. Where are your accusers? I don't know either. Get out of here. All right, so he cuts her a good break. But what I wanted you to see was it's the scribes and the Pharisees that are trying to bring false accusations against the Messiah, and they don't care who they get involved. They're willing to kill a woman just to get to him. All right, an innocent woman had nothing to do with anything. All right, so that's some real Jesus love right there. I mean, come on. Now, you want to talk about scribes and Pharisees? Scribes and Pharisees, for us, represents the teachers and the preachers that we have running around this world today. So you want to talk about a teaching that's pointed to the church? Well, it's right here. All right. Now, with all that being said, let's go back down to 44. I just wanted to see, he's talking to the scribes and the Pharisees, the preachers and teachers of the church of his day. All right. And then which how do we be? Here we go. All right, so here, remember he came to him and it says that he's accusing them some stuff, and they're saying, like, we're Abraham's seed, dude. You don't know what you're talking about, all right? All right, and he picks it up in verse 31 and says this, Then Jesus said unto the Jews which believed on him, If ye continue in my word, then ye are my disciples indeed. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. They answered him, We be Abraham's seed, and were never in bondage to any man. How sayest thou, ye shall be made free? All All right, and Jesus answered and said, verily, verily, I say unto you, whosoever committeth sin is a servant of sin. That's exactly what he told Cain, remember? He said, if you do the right thing, you'll prosper. But if you sin, well, then that's your fault. What happens? And that's exactly what he's saying again, right here to this group, these same scribes and Pharisees, all right? Listen to what he says. And the servant abideth not in the house forever, but the Son abideth forever. If the Son therefore shall make you free, ye shall be free indeed. All right, now don't overread that. He's talking to Kenites here, and is getting ready to tell them that. All right, but he's telling them, if you truly repent, then you will be free indeed of all this. All right, so he's letting them know that Kenites are not beneath salvation, even in his own right. Now, take the knowledge of the Kenites and then go to Luke to the parable of the prodigal son, and then read that. All right, and then you'll understand the deepest meaning of that parable. All right, the prodigal son is not the kid that just runs away with some money. It's a Kenite that left a long time ago in the first earth age. All right, and that's truly what that parable is actually about. Listen to what it says. Let's continue with what it says right here. Verse 37, I know that ye are Abraham's seed. Why would he say that? Because Abraham means father of many nations. Right? All the nations that they had, they were living among them, right? Listen to what he goes on and says. But ye seek to kill me because my words have no place in you. All right? I speak that which I have seen of my Father with a big F, and ye do that which ye have seen with your father. All right? You see what he says? Let's keep going with it just a little bit more. And he answered and said unto him, Abraham is our fathers. Jesus said unto them, if ye were Abraham's children, ye would do the works of Abraham. But ye seek to kill me, a man that hath told you the truth, which I have heard of God. This did not Abraham. Abraham didn't do anything like that. Ye do the deeds of your father. Then said they to him, we be not born of fornication. We have one Father, even God. And Jesus said unto them, if God were your Father, ye would love me, for I proceed forth and came from God. Neither came I of myself, but he that sent me. Okay, why do ye not understand my speech? Even because you cannot hear my words. Ye are of your father, the devil. Okay? And the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning. Who's your first murderer? Cain. All right, puts it right back in the garden again. All right? He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie. Remember everything he told Eve. Did he want anything? Did he care about Eve's well-being in any way? No, he wasn't there. He's playing the end game. He was there to pollute the bloodline that Christ would come through. He doesn't care if she ever makes the sins to a level of a God. He has no care if she even eats the next day. All right? When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. And because I tell you the truth, you believe me not. Which of you convinceth me of sin? If I say the truth, why do you not believe me? All right? So he's just flat calling them out. Just flat out. You're the descendants of your Kenites that have snuck in. It's funny how this kind of happens, all right? You start following Kenites around, you'll follow the First Chronicles, all right? You'll find him in there. All right? He's working for David, he's working for the early kings anyway. All right, I think it was David. All right. He flat calls them out. They're all Kenites, and their only job they're doing is scribe work. They're right there in the temple, keeping notes for the priests. They're right there cooking books for the Levites, all the things where all the money is. All right, curses the ground. They got to make a living somewhere. All right, probably pretty good bookkeepers, probably. Actually, they are. Now, we'll just talk about this when we get into our Bible, because I think Sargon, which we've talked about before, he's the first emperor of Babylon, right? One of the things he's noted historically for is making a college that was set up for scribes to teach people to be good scribes. All right, and now, so how does that all tie in? Ezra and Nehemiah out of the minor prophets, okay? Now you got to remember, Ezra and Nehemiah, they're the ones that go back from Babylon, from the captivity of Babylon, and are sent back to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple, right? And so it was Cyrus that cut them loose, and he funds them and sends them on their way. Well, the trip from Babylon all the way back to Jerusalem is just butt tough. I mean, it's just a hard trip. And all these little Levitical priests got all nice and weak in Babylon where they had a good living, just like the children of Israel in Egypt. All right, exactly the same way. All right, so halfway through there, all the Levites go back to Babylon because they'd had enough. And Ezra, he continues on. And then when they get there, they write back and say, we need you to send me more priests. Well, when they get there, there's not one Levitical priest in them. They're all Nethinim. They're all those that are given the service. So you got Kenites, you got other Babylonians, all that, just coming in to be priests right there in the temple. All right? This continues all the way till Christ's time, okay? And that's what he's talking about. By them, they're the priests. Now, if you remember, I think the head priest, his name's Caiaphas, I think, in Christ's time. If you look up his name with a Strong's, you'll find out it's a Babylonian. It's a Babylonian name. It's not a Levitical name. It's not one of the priests. So all this time, now think about this. Think about this. You got the first heaven and earth age where a third of men fell. A third of the souls went with them. All right, so now you have a flesh lineage that those can be justly born through. All right, come all the way to Christ's time. These are the people that are convicting him of lying. All right, and will eventually end up in his crucifixion. All right, now think about this. Now you go all the way to Judgment Day. Now God got a real case. All right, first your third fell here, killed the Messiah here, and you polluted the rest of mankind along the way. So now he can pass judgment on them. It's their own nails in their own coffin. That's what I'm saying. That's why I always try to teach people that the Garden of Eden is a trap from the outside. It is set to catch Lucifer. It's not set to catch Adam and Eve. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. The trap was for the enemy. It worked really good. All plays out real neat. But when you go to talking about this, if you go talking to a preacher, most preachers anyway, all right, they're not going to have a clue as to what you're talking about. They're going to look at you and tell you nobody knows what happened in the Garden of Eden. All right. They're going to look at you. They're going to look at you and tell you a bunch of things. They're going to tell you that there's no such thing as a Kenite, even though you can find the word in all the Old Testament. Almost every book has it mentioned at one time. Now, I think it's very interesting, all right? And it sure lays out the crucifixion scene a lot better. All right, now you know who the movers and the shakers are behind the scenes. Now you see why all they were trying to do is lie and get him killed. Every chance they did, they brought a woman at the beginning of this. Right.
And then get him killed. Yeah.
Right, and they're trying to catch him with a law here. See, because if he messes up, they can accuse him of being a false prophet. And the law of false prophet says you stone a false prophet. Now, they can't do it, but they have to get Rome to do it. That's why all the stuff with Roman law that was it. But I wanted to finish that up tonight because it's important to kind of carry that through pretty quick, and I didn't want to be a full week before we even talked about it again. Yeah. And kind of fresh in your mind. And that's where we're going to stop with Kenites on this. Now, we're going to run into them in other places, and we're going to bring it out. A couple of those places that the word Kenite is used, it's actually talking about people that have a lineage that's within Israel. All right? And the reason why they're called Kenites is because that's where they're living. Jael and her husband is the first one that comes to my mind, because that's my daughter's name. But they're called Kenites, but they're not. They're still the tribe of Midian again, but they're living in the land of the Kenites. So they're called Kenites because they're geographical location, right? Right. Right. It's like saying I'm from Arkansas, but I'm really Irish is really what it's saying. Yeah, or something, like that, right. So there's a lot that, but anyway, but that's a couple of times that's mentioned. But the rest of the time it's just talking about whatever group it is. In First Chronicles, you get names of like 4 of the major families right there and their home place where they like to hang out. But that's all we got for tonight then. Sunday we're going to be back. We're going to start in Adam's actually lineage in chapter 5 and finish that out. And that puts us right into that crazy, scary chapter 6 where we start talking about Noah, fallen angels,
Geber.
this flood, right, Geber, all that fun stuff that you see all these videos made about all over crazy places. But we're going to find out exactly what it's got to say. Now, that means I got to work because there's a lot of stuff I got to get caught up on. But that's it. You guys have a good night. Ta-da.
Oh, that, hold on.
Well, you could have went and peed.